So we're level funded plus a very small percentage, certainly less than 2%. And that's what we've come up with after, as we know here, much dialogue. So I think it was a good, healthy meeting. It did result in a concern from FinCom, and I deliver that message as the liaison. We simply don't have the money. Where do we get it from? So they have invited us to at least consider how we would address that, whether it be with, they haven't voted on their position on our budget and how it fits into the entire town budget. That's later in the stage, but I believe they've asked us to prepare for town meeting with an answer to where would it come from. So I pass that message along. They're looking and they're open to continued input, I think, town-wide. There has been, what I see is some good news forthcoming from Boston in terms of a Senate vote which indicates they will maintain the level of funding that the House budget has indicated. So we have I think we're pretty solid on what we know local aid and school funding will be. So in that way, I think we're further ahead, and from there it will certainly go to the budget subcommittee, a date to be announced. I see the chairman, the vice chairman of the selectmen is here. I don't know if a date's been set for subcommittee or.
I think it's safe to assume we're probably going to be meeting the next week or two. We're just going to have to get the schedules of the 6 members together along with the town administrator, the school superintendent.
Thank you. So it's not Thursday as we thought, Tim. It's to be announced.
Anything?
No, nothing to add until we meet.
Anything from you guys? No? Thank you for that. All righty.
It was a lively meeting.
Yes, I heard.
Update on town meeting. I do know that we have the 24th as the May 24th as the date for the first night of town meeting. That may expand beyond the first night. You know, there's been a couple of times that we've gone 2-3 nights, but my guess is that the budget will be at least fairly discussed on the first night, whether it gets done on the first night. I just want to make sure that people know to keep their calendars open if they can to come to town meeting, because there will be some questions. I mean, they made an allusion that there were some, not just the snow and ice question, you know, the budget as a whole perhaps has some issues with it, not just our additional 222,000. But they also mentioned that perhaps there'd be some other articles that would have a cost attached to them that could make the budget discussion more significant at town meeting. You know, it's one of those things, a lot of people sometimes feel like, oh, it'll get discussed, it'll get done, and I don't really need to go. I think in any year where you're having difficulty coming up to an agreed upon budget, the more people that show up at town meeting, the better able the town meeting will be capable of determining what is it that the people in the town want. You know, when we were talking about there's no money in the town, we said, well, there is a pot of money. Money does come into the town. How it gets divided, that is the real question, and it's a matter of priorities.
Divided by, it's town meeting that decides that.
And to some extent, what the boards do is they determine what are their priorities or what are their perspectives on what the priorities should be. But, you know, obviously when we go to town meeting, the ultimate body that's going to decide what those priorities are going to be is the body of the town meeting. So I wanted to make sure people knew it's the 24th, starting at 7, and just hoping that people...
May 24th, 7 p.m., Westport High School.
Westport High School Auditorium. And the warrants, I believe, are due, or they're going to be discussed next Monday. I think it's their first round of discussion, or a round of discussion. I'm not sure which one they're in.
Very good.
If I- if-
Yes.
So
Go ahead,
if I
Mike.
could just add to the discussion on the process, as town meeting typically does take multiple nights, the end result is either a balanced budget or an imbalanced budget, and that's when the school committee loses some of its guidance and recommendation power, because an imbalanced budget becomes the purview of the Board of Selectmen to take further action. So it is a town-wide body that, and we had some discussion last night about it, it essentially is setting priorities for the town. Education, public safety, and the many warrant questions that are there, it's the time to be heard. So let's put those dates down and recommend that we certainly attend on our own, as well as encourage others.
Go ahead, Eric.
Any word on turnout? Are we going to be setting up all those rooms again like we've done in the past, or at least one extra room?
We will certainly try to put together the same system we had last year. Because there is no, last year we had an agreed upon budget fairly early, and we knew that there were people on both sides of the issue. We were expecting a rather large crowd. Once this budget gets put together, town and school together, because we're about 50%, a little under at this point. We were over 50% last year. We're now, even with the 200,000, just about 50% or just under. I think if the budget goes to town meeting as an imbalanced budget, it will be the responsibility of the different constituent groups out there to rally their forces to say, hey, here's what we want to be as a priority, because as Mr. Sullivan said, if it goes in as an unbalanced budget, then it will be a big part of the body of the town meeting to determine what happens from there. And if at the end of that town meeting it is an unbalanced budget still, then it goes to the hands of the Board of Selectmen to decide how they want to deal with that. So, again, I don't know, because until the whole package gets put together and we come up with a real number, or at least a number that it's going to be recommended at town meeting floor, I don't think you're going to find out. There's no real science to this, because not everybody tells you how they're thinking, but you hear from different constituents, we're happy about this, we're not happy about that, we're going to fight against this, we're going to promote that. That's really when you know, but we have the capability of putting together the same system we had last year.
I'm not sure if I read correctly, but they have agreed upon at the State House to keep the Chapter 70 monies the same as House 1 and not touch that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And this was another piece of explanation we had to do last night. They also agreed to increase slightly the circuit breaker, which is reimbursement on special education monies. The problem from us is we've done a good job on reducing our expenses in special education, so the increase in reimbursement is literally just covering the loss that we would have seen otherwise, because we get reimbursed in what we spent. So this year we spent less than we thought we would, so we're going to expect less reimbursement than we thought we would get. So the two are kind of evening out. So even though people are talking, oh, well, you're getting additional special ed reimbursements, no, we're not. And why not? Because we saved money this year. So that's money we're not going to get reimbursed on. So we're going to actually get less next year, but it's about even with what we expected. So